Okay, you're very welcome to episode 3 of the Rossie Podcast in association with Shannonside FM. We're looking ahead to this Sunday's Connacht Senior Club Football Final between Pearses and Coolera Strandhill, joined by Gerry McGowan and Willie Hegarty to look ahead to it. Gerry, we might start with yourself. You've had an involvement in Roscommon in the past, so you're neutral to an extent, but you're a Sligo man. We won't hide that. So coming into this game, I suppose not many people actually had these two teams in the final. Probably people would have thought Carafin Ballina was the final. So a bit of a surprise pairing.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Darragh. I think if you sort of took a step back and looked at the Connacht final sort of path, that both, I suppose the Roscommon and Galway champions probably would have looked at on their side and said, right, okay, well, that's the tough side of the draw, get over that quarter-final, I suppose the Pearses Carafin, as it happens, get over that one. I think they played the Leitrim champions, and then obviously the winners meet whoever on the other side of in the final. And looking at the draw then from a Mayo perspective, in fairness, it probably looked like a semi. I think Ballina or the Mayo champions had the London champions and the Sligo champions. So look, on paper, to be fair, that was probably a fair assumption that those two teams probably would have made it to the final. And again, the big one was probably the Roscommon champions and the Galway champions. There probably wasn't much in that, but as it happens, Pearses, dealt with that one very, very well on the day and put in an awesome performance.
Yeah, Willie, you would have been following Pearses. I don't know how many games in a row you've been to, maybe the last 5 or 6, and they seem to be getting better game by game. Have you noticed that yourself?
Yeah, I mean, Gerry was probably involved maybe with Boyle the last couple of years with Keane Smith and that. And it was the Boyle game that I think alerted everybody to the fact that this Pearses team are certainly back where they were a couple of years ago. They lost to Clonagale in injury time, conceded 2 goals, didn't they beat Dominics, but the Boyle game was the marker because Boyle had been in two finals. Boyle beat them in a really tight semi-final last year by a point. And even though both sides were going to get through, I think Padraig Pearses, it was the best performance of the championship. Boyle actually played well. It was the evening that Keane, McGowan and Darragh Craig were back from their summer voyage. And there was just something, you left the ground in Woodmount on that Saturday evening saying that Padraig Pearses are right back in the frame. And that everybody was saying then in the next 24 hours, what we need now is the quarter-final of Bridges and Pearses. And, that was the first moment since then, Darragh, they've been on an unbeaten run. They've won 7 games in a row. They've only conceded 4 goals in 8 championship games. But that was the moment that Padraig Pearses looked capable of winning the Roscommon championship on the evening they beat Boyle above Woodmount.
And we know the pedigree St. Bridget's have. They probably, in my opinion, should have won an All-Ireland club title earlier this year. The fact that they took Pearses to extra time without Ben O'Carroll, we'll say, just goes to show Roscommon club football is in a very healthy place, and we have 2 or 3 teams there that are a match for anyone in Connacht and maybe even beyond that.
Well, it's probably been proven over the last 3 or 4 years. Pearses came through in 2021. Beat a very, very good Kilmacroke side who were on the rebound from a previous year All-Ireland defeat to Kilcoo. They were really established and experienced, and Kilmacud beat them by 5 or 6 points in the end and fully deserving winners. Then the following year, the following 2 years later, out came St. Bridget's. And St. Bridget's, beat Carafin in last year's Connacht Club Final. They went on to beat the Munster champions. And look at what within 2 or 3 minutes of winning the All-Ireland club title last January. So Pearse have come along, they've taken Bridges out, and then they've taken Carafin out. So yeah, the Roscommon champions the last couple of years have beaten the Galway champions and beaten Carafin. So on that alone, even though I'd say Gerry might agree with this as well, the last 2 years Carafin haven't been to where they were in 2018, 2019. They were unbeatable at that stage, but still, to beat Carafin, to go to Tuam this year and beat Carafin, it's still a really, really good day's work. So yeah, I mean, the club champions in Roscommon at both intermediate and senior level over the last 3 or 4 years are able to compete with the best in the country.
Yeah, and Gerry, you could probably say the same for Sligo football at the moment. It's on the up. The underage has been doing really well since, we'll say, COVID. And I suppose Sligo now are seeing themselves on the county stage anyway. Probably next year looking to get out of Division 3 into Division 2. And, they were very close to beating down in that Tailteann Cup semi-final. So are you seeing even in the Sligo club football as well that it's in a healthy place?
Yeah, look, all of that helps, and there's still obviously improvement to be made there. But what's probably different, what's probably coming in terms of a wave for Sligo football is that a lot of the younger generation are coming up and they're sort of winning games at underage level. They're probably beating the likes of Mayo, Galway and Roscommon and in sort of minor under 20 sort of championship arenas now. And there's not that fear factor. Maybe when I was playing, there's probably, we were probably getting used to getting hammered on a weekly basis from the Roscommon, Mayo and Galway. But that fear factor is sort of gone now from the underage structure. So when they come up against the sort of the Ballinaz or, maybe teams outside of Sligo, they just don't fear them, I suppose, the same way as we might have in the past. So, but yeah, by and large, like Sligo had, a good Division 3 last year. They'd taken a very strong Galway team to within a point in Markovich in a semi-final, and then went on and had a good Tailteann Cup, and again sort of an epic battle with sort of Down in Croke Park. That again, it was probably there was a sending off, I think, that swayed it in the end. One of the Sligo lads got sent off, or probably very, very unlucky in the end, and Down sort of pipped it in the end, but a good battle. And again, that's sort of a sign of all the improvement that they're making under Tony McEntee. And again, they'll be looking forward to the year ahead and improving even more and strengthening the squad.
We'll touch on Pearses in a minute, but just for the people who may not have seen Coolera Strandhill up close to date, Niall Murphy's probably the player, Gerry, that stands out. I think he's the most recognisable name. But in terms of a blend, is it an attacking kind of team, or is there a defensive structure? What can people expect from Coolera Strandhill on Sunday?
Yeah, I suppose, look, at Coolera, to be fair to them, they're back-to-back champions in Sligo, and they've probably they've had a new set of management this year who have kind of come in and maybe wouldn't have a history of winning sort of back-to-back sort of championships. So in fairness, they've really knuckled down and sort of got to grips with that sort of winning the title. It's very hard to put back-to-backs in any county, but they did it this year. I would say, look, they're an attack, and they play on the front foot, and I would say they like to maybe drop back like most teams are doing. It's nothing too innovative in the modern game, and I think they've got good buy-in within the squad this year, and they've come through a Sligo championship with a replay and went to extra time, I think, the second day. But but by and large, they're strong enough squad, and we'll sort of knuckle down and we'll make life difficult, I think, for Pearses on Sunday.
Is the key thing for Coolera Strandhill to be not over reliant on Niall Murphy? I can't say. I've seen Coolera Strandhill up close, but you'd imagine a star forward like Niall Murphy would get into not just any club team, but most county teams across the country. There is going to be extra attention on him from Pearses, you'd imagine, on Sunday.
I think so. I think because he's a well-known household name now at this stage, and again, he's been a star for Sligo for many years, and people within Sligo would probably know him fairly well. And the cat's out of the bag a long time in Sligo. Lots of Sligo teams have been trying to keep him at bay, and sometimes they struggle with that. And look, he's been having a pretty good year all around. But I don't think Coolera's sort of a one-trick pony. They've got other guys that have sort of stood up all throughout the year and probably kicked some really good scores at vital times for them. And they've had to battle through extra time, and even the last day battle through penalties. But they're coming up obviously against a very resilient Pearses team who have, as Willie said, they've won 7 games on the bounce against formidable opposition. And, I've seen them up close, obviously, in Woodmouth that evening. Very well coached. They've got a system there that's sort of very hard to penetrate. And, they have this knack, I'm sure Willie knows, of getting ahead, and it's very hard to bring them back. And, that evening, really, I think they got an opportunistic goal maybe, and then once they got ahead, we just, there was just no way of sort of, taking them back. And look, there's some amazing players around the field. Again, sort of, you talk about maybe the one or two household names of Coolera, but like they're full of household names. And, not only that, they're stepping up with the likes of Declan Kenny now, who's probably lit the championship up within Roscommon, and then outside of that, and is probably going to be a huge player for Roscommon in the seasons ahead. But he's been one of the shining lights, and then you sort of mix that with the dailies, and you're looking around the pitch and thinking, where is their weak link, and it's very hard to find one. And the likes of Davy Murray coming back in the squad. He was injured early on, and I think he came back into the squad, and all of a sudden they have another experienced guy who just knows how to manage and control games. And it's very hard to look past them, considering the opposition that they've beaten along the way. And they've just been sort of really solid all around. And obviously throwing the system that they play, it's just going to be very very hard to see past them.
Yeah, Willie, I mean, Gerry just touched on him there. Declan Kenny was I think he was a good player. He was in with the county panel at the start of the year. It didn't really happen for him in terms of getting opportunities, but he's used this club championship to his advantage. And you would imagine if, I suppose, Davy Burke and the management team are looking for one or two players to go into the team next year, he'll be on top of the list.
Yeah, he showed glimpses the year before last year, and look, he got into the county setup, but didn't get any really much game time. But he's on fire in the championship. He's a goal and 15 points scored, and I'm unsure whether he's a defender or a forward. He lines out in the half-back line, and certainly he's got a goal and 15 points in the championship. And in injury time, they were a point down to St. Bridget's, 40 metres from goal, and Declan Kinney demanded the ball, wanted the ball, and split the post. Or only for that we could be talking about a different Connacht club final this evening. So he's had an exceptional year. Yeah, I mean, look at Davy Burke. Absolutely, would be looking at Declan Kinney. Because he's been one of the players of the championship. But one thing that Pearses have tweaked over the last 2 or 3 years, they were always resilient, always tough to beat. But when you put in Paul Carey, Owen Colleran, Declan Kinney, different scorers are emerging, which was their downfall. You could always know with Pearses, they'll always hold a team to 9 or 10 or 11 scores. But they always struggle themselves to hit 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 scores. But now they're doing that consistently. Carey has emerged. Kinney out of nowhere, 115 this year. Owen Colleran, on the 20 player, 114 this year. And the last day in Mohill, when they really needed somebody, Ronald Daly kicked 4 points from play. So, for Coolera, it's going to be really, very hard to try and tie down all the Pearses players from getting scores. So that's where I think this year they're playing a more expansive game, while they still are very solid at the back. When you have Willie Hegarty, Davy Murray, Conor Daly in the back line, you can afford to gamble a little bit and go at teams when they turn you over.
Gerry, you were in with Roscommon for a year. Just on the Niall and Conor, I don't think Ronan was in the year you were there. But just that experience, and look, it feels like Niall Daly always pops up with a score, whether it's, just from that right-hand side, 40 yards out. To have that, I mean, to not be over-reliant on the two lads up front, that you have maybe 3 Dalys and Declan Kenny as well that can pop up with maybe a point or two each. You're talking maybe worth 7 or 8 points there on a good day. That you can't buy that.
Yeah, look, I mean, the Dailies are well spoken about. I mean, they're really good football lads, and I got to know them. Yeah, you're right. Ronan wasn't there. I got to know Niall and Conor, quite well. That year at Roscommon, and look, they're just their knowledge of football, their sort of ability to sort of play in positions that you ask them to do. Like Niall's one of the sort of one of the best brains in terms of football and managing a game on a field. You can see him, even in training, you can see how he sort of commands the game and likes to sort of know what's going on. He's sort of shouting at lads. He's like that general moving around the pitch, and then he'll kind of sit back into that lovely pocket in any given time, and he'll sort of just mop up. He'll just read the game so well, and again, sort of he lift the standard if they need a score, or if there's a sort of a long period of time where maybe Pearses or Roscommon haven't scored, he'll pop up with something. He'll just sort of make it happen, and that's a sort of a very good trait that's from the players that I suppose certainly at county level and obviously at club level, that you can sort of make things happen. Like he might win a free, he might just sort of get he won't let that sort of clock go on too long without a score or something, and then as I said on the other side, then he'll just read things so well. But again, Connor's the same. Connor's sort of Mr. Consistency. He'll just get on with it. He'll do his job. He'll play his role really well. Run around the pitch with number 3 on his back, and he could find him up in corner forward and kicking points for fun, and again, Ronan, as Willie said, popped up with 4 points against Mohill and sort of just probably took the game by the scruff of the neck when Pearses needed it. Mohill had obviously set up camp at back, and they had kept them. I think it was 3-2, Willie, maybe at half time, and had sort of looked like they, Pearses were struggling. They turned them over a lot, and then they come out in the second half and just maybe turned it up a gear, and those leaders sort of kicked into play. And again, Declan Kenny, I think, was instrumental in that as well, picking the ball up in his, half back line, full back line, and then breaking that, that really quick transition that Willie said, and getting up there and sort of kicking points over from, around the 45. And again, players like, O'Connor and, Paul Carey, all sort of stepped up at different times this year. So, it's testament to them that, again, I said it already, the teams that they've beaten and in the manner in which they've done, they've just grounded out, they've got ahead and managed the game out from there, and just without being spectacular, they've just ground out those results that they needed to keep them on the road. And it's a grueling championship. We're almost into December now, and to keep the bodies right and the the team together, they've done really well in that regard.
And from Coolera Strandhill's point of view, we shouldn't forget they've taken out the Mayo club champions in Ballina, Stevenite. So some form coming into this, even though Pearses seem to be the overwhelming favourites with bookies and most people, and probably rightly so, given what they've done. But I suppose Coolera Strandhill shouldn't be underestimated. Like I said, they've just taken out the Mayo club champions going into this game, so they have to be seriously respected.
Yeah, and a really good Ballina team, to be fair, who had just been to London. And look, as anybody that's ever been involved in those trips to London, over to when you have to sort of go away to London, they sound like lovely trips, or the New York trip, they sound like really nice trips, and they sound like a bit of a jolly, but they can be grueling trips on teams. And to be fair to Niall Heffernan, that winning back to back in Mayo has been some achievement for them, because again, as I said earlier, back to backs in any county is not that easily done, and doing it in Mayo is particularly hard considering all the sort of superpowers that are over there. But they had to make that grueling trip the week before, and they probably had only about 5, 6, 7 days to sort of turn around and think about Coolera and get back off the plane and get set up for training and all that kind of stuff. So they were probably a little bit fatigued from the trip, where Coolera sort of come into the game sort of that little bit fresher, and didn't have to sort of deal with the hustle and bustle of those trips. And to be fair, Coolera probably had chances to win it in normal time, and Ballina had gone up and maybe 9-7 at one point, and brought it back to 9-9 to bring it into penalties. And credit to them, they had to sort of dig it out to get it to penalties, and then got it into penalties, and they got 5 from 5, and Ballina missed one. That was the difference.
To finish up with predictions, Willie, we might go with yourself first. I think you'll side with Roscommon, will you?
Look, I suppose on where the two teams are maybe at the moment, you probably have to. But the big thing for me, Darragh, is that a Roscommon and Sligo club will play in our Ireland club semi-final. And if RD from Louth was to ever look, again on Saturday evening, were to ever turn over Coolera, I mean, you had an incredible thing then on Sunday morning, knowing that a Roscommon, Sligo or Louth club would play in our Ireland senior club final. That would be extraordinary. For Padraig Pearses, I suppose they were there in 21, lost our Ireland club semi-final. And this is their 8th ever game in the provincial championship history for Padraig Pearses, and it's their 7th away from home. They've only one home game out of 8. In 21, they had 3 away games. And again this year, they were in Tuam, they were in Ballinamore, and now they're up to Markovich Park. So it's an incredible record to have away from home. But in that regard, and I mean, they'll be under no illusions what's ahead of them on Sunday. I mean, you look at Mark McDaniel, Ross Doherty, Niall Murphy. Luke Bree is an Ireland club winner with St. Vincent's. He was involved with Roscommon there for a while as well. Sean Taylor was a Donegal minor. So, Ross O'Connor has come from Dublin club football. So they're a really, really good side. But I think on the law of averages, if Pearses continue the form they're in Connacht, which, they had to really battle to beat Bridges. They came through the Roscommon semi-final and final. And then their form in Connacht has been very, very impressive. 2 Tinning in Corofin, 13 points the last day. So if they carry that form into the final, it's going to be very, very hard to see them being beaten. And as Gerry made a valid point, a 2 or 3 point lead to Pearses is a big, big lead to them because they don't give away anything soft. They're able to keep control of a game. They're able to manage a game and they don't panic. And them qualities in a provincial final are absolutely massive. So, look, it'll be a great occasion. I can't see not a Sligo crowd coming out to back Coolera Strandhill. And Padraig Pearses have great followers. They've built up a huge following. So it'll be a really wonderful atmosphere. And tight Markovich Park pitch, stand maybe packed. There should be a cracking atmosphere. And, like I said, Roscommon or Sligo club in the last 4 in the country. But you'd have to, at this stage, on forum, where the two teams are at, you'd have to say Padraig Pearses are probably ahead of Coolera Strandhill. But, that's just before the ball is thrown in.
And Gerry, yourself, I think you'll stay neutral, will you?
Yeah, I'll stay pretty neutral here. It's very hard to say, but I agree with everything Willie has said. But look, Willie, yourself, Connacht games are tight. Home venue for Coolera is a bit of an advantage, and Pearses have a decent trip to make down to Sligo, and but these Connacht games there's never much in them, and conditions can go either way. Heavy pitch, there's very little that if you get lucky on a day like this, you never know. But I think by and large, on balance, and the teams that Pearses have had to beat, they'd obviously go in slight favourites.